So Carl, I've got a new pair of aluminum handlebars right here. They usually come from the factory pretty wide, and the expectation is that the rider cuts the handlebars to their desired width. And a lot of people, they'll take their bike or their handlebars to a bike shop to get it done, but actually it's pretty easy to do at home, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so what do you need to cut handlebars at home, Carl?
The bare minimum is a hacksaw and a saw guide.
Awesome. And then maybe some finishing tools.
You can use a file, a chamfering tool, or some sandpaper. I'd also like to use a bright colored paint marker, tape measure, and masking tape.
So we have these aluminum bars right here. They come in a 780 millimeter width, and we're gonna cut them to your preferred handlebar width, 760. So can you show me how you do that, Carl?
Yep. So on these ones, these specific ones do have a handy guide on them. They already have the markings. So in this case, since they're starting at 780, I just want to go down 10 millimeters on each side for a total reduction of 20 millimeters.
Yeah, and most handlebars do come with these markings now, but if you have bars that don't, they happen to be blank or something.
So we can always double check that just to be sure. We can just use a tape measure like that, find our 10 millimeters and mark it out that way. Since this one already has the markings, I just like to use a bright colored paint marker where I want to cut just to make it exceptionally obvious. I can go ahead and put it in the saw guide. And we do want to make sure that we orient it correctly so that the short piece falls off, not the entire handlebar when we cut it.
Right.
It's a pretty easy thing to do.
And this is just like a standard saw guide used for steer tubes, handlebars. Pretty easy to find online, I think.
Yep. So one thing to note when you're doing the saw cutting just before we start is to go ahead and just let the blade do the work. You don't really have to put a lot of force into this at all, especially for handlebars, which do tend to be on the thinner side. Go ahead and set the blade in the guide and make sure that we are exactly where we want to be. Now we're good to go. I can go ahead and saw away.
Great. And then now that you have this cut, you're gonna clean it up a little bit?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and get the dust out from inside the bar. And in this case, I do have a nice chamfering tool here that'll just create a nice beveled edge all the way around. But you can also use a file or some sandpaper, whatever you have laying around. We just want to clean up the outer edges, just going around like that until there's no more sharp edges remaining. For the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and finish it off with this. Now that I have a nice, clean, relatively smooth edge, just do the exact same thing for the other side and we'll be good to go.
Awesome. So Carl, I just put some brand new handlebars on my mountain bike, but unlike these, they're carbon fiber. So is there like some different considerations I have to make when cutting a carbon fiber handlebar over aluminum?
There are. We are first and foremost gonna need a different saw blade. This 24 TPI saw blade is going to be far too coarse to use for the carbon fiber. The issue is, it's in the name, the fibers tend to catch and grab, especially on the lower TPI saw blades, and then that can lead to fraying and a blown out handlebar end, potentially even bad enough that the fibers peel away and make the part unusable. So what we're going to use instead is an abrasive saw blade, which looks more like a piece of sandpaper along the edge. You can also use a higher TPI saw blade, but I do prefer this kind of saw blade instead.
Awesome. And also, since the bars are already on my bike, obviously here we used a vise, but can I cut them on the bike?
You can. It's going to be a lot less stable, so using the saw guide is going to be a lot more important.
Definitely. Well, since I have you here, Carl, can you please cut my handlebars for me?
Yeah, let's work on it.
All right. So I've got these brand new carbon handlebars that came 800 millimeters wide. I think I want to try cutting them to 770. A little wider than I usually go, but I think it's always better to start wide because you can always take off more.
It's really hard to grow handlebars, especially when they're made of carbon fiber.
Impossible, maybe even. But I've got everything loosened up already, so let's take my grip off. Do you like take the controls off or anything?
I usually like to move things as far away as I can,
Okay.
Especially when I'm cutting. So if we can actually get these completely off and out of the way on the other side of the bike, that would be ideal. These handlebars also have markings. In this case, they actually show us the total width instead of how much we're cutting them down, so that's even easier. So remind me again what length you were looking for?
770 is what I want to try.
770. So in this case, we can just find our 770 mark. Go ahead and put a little dot on there, just like we did for the aluminum bars. Just grab a good length of masking tape and wrap it around on the inside where we're gonna cut.
And this is just gonna keep the fibers from like splitting away, right?
Yes, this helps keep the fibers from splintering. The main issue is when we finish the cut and we have that edge hanging off. That's where the fibers really like to split apart. So using just a little bit of masking tape can help keep those tight and keep it from splitting away. Since we have the tape secured down there, we can grab our saw guide and cinch it down over where we want to cut. Grab our carbon fiber saw blade. Double check that we're cutting where we wanted to.
And
That was 770, right?
770, yeah.
All right.
And then I hear carbon dust is not too good for you, right, Carl? So
It's not the best. So if
No.
you're doing this a lot in a confined space, it might be a good idea to go ahead and put a face mask on.
yeah, or
At
do
the
it-
very least, have a vacuum running as well.
yeah, or I mean, like we are here in a really well ventilated area.
Yep, well ventilated spaces are not a big concern. If you're doing this all day, every day, it's a lot more important. And since we aren't in a vise, we do want to make sure to have a good hold. I'm glad to have Bruce here for a little bit of extra support. There we go. Cut one done. Now we can grab a little sandpaper to clean this up. We're really just trying to take care of any loose fibers that might catch as we slide the controls back onto the bike. Just inspect the edges one more time. This one looks really good and clean.
Awesome.
So we're all good to go, and we'll repeat the process on the other side of the handlebar.
Awesome, thanks, Carl.
All right, Bruce, feeling good, ready to shred?
Yeah, I think I like the width. I'm gonna have to ride it to be sure. I've never ridden 770 bars, so we'll find out.
All right, well, always remember, we can cut them down a little bit more if you need to. I know you tend to like to ride a little bit narrower.
Yeah, and I think if I do need to cut them down more on my own, I know what to do. I need a hacksaw, saw guide, a little file or sandpaper. I can do it at home.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Carl, and hopefully that made it easy for you to know how to cut your handlebars at home. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to see more. Thanks for watching.